Thom Hartmann here on the best of the rest of science and green news. You need to know this. Our warming planet is causing major changes to our oceans. According to a new study published in the journal Nature Climate Change, warming waters are drastically altering the biodiversity in our oceans. In fact, these changes are more extreme than anything our planet has seen in 3 million years. And it's only going to get worse as our planet gets hotter. While some claim that it's no big deal if species migrate to new areas, scientists warn that such drastic changes could disrupt the entire ocean ecosystem. In order to test their theory, scientists at the National Center for Science Research in France developed what they called a pseudo-species model to see how different species would react to warmer oceans. The researchers could then compare those reactions to different times in our planet's history. According to that analysis, researchers said that in the most dramatic warming forecast, the so-called do-nothing scenario, about 70% of the marine life in our oceans would change. Even less dire warning scenarios, about half of all ocean would have to relocate, adapt, or die off. When species suddenly vanish from their historic habitats, the functions that they served in those environments can disappear as well. Ecosystems that rely on symbiotic relationships could be thrown out of balance, and other species could be forced to move or die. And some marine life, like coral, just can't get up and move. If you think this isn't important, you need to think again. Our oceans are the lifeblood of our planet. They are a primary force behind our weather and our climate, and they are the main source of food for millions of people all over the world. Changes to our marine life mean changes to human life. Doesn't matter whether you live in the Midwest or the Middle East. Life as you and I know it could not exist without our oceans. We can agree or disagree about the quality of a science textbook, but most of us still can agree that the Bible doesn't belong in science class. For students in some Louisiana schools, however, that's exactly where they're going to read the book of Genesis. Back in 2008, that state passed legislation that allowed teachers to critique well-established scientific theory like evolution, but prohibits lessons that teach creationism. But that hasn't stopped many of the Louisiana public schools from presenting students with the creation story from the Bible as if it was a fact. According to a letter from a teacher from Airline High School, quote, "We will read in Genesis and some supplemental materials debunking various aspects of evolution from which the students will present," end quote. Whatever your religious beliefs may be, you probably don't want public school teachers instructing kids on biblical teachings any more than you'd want your preacher teaching economics. Our nation decided long ago that church and state should remain separate, and it's time to stop blurring those lines in Louisiana. At 20 years old, many of us were barely able to save rent money, but Boyan Slat is ready to save the world. Last week, EcoWatch.com announced that Boyan, the founder and CEO of The Ocean Cleanup, is getting ready to deploy the first ever ocean cleaning system. In a blog post about his project, Boyan wrote, quote, "Not only will this first cleanup array contribute to cleaner waters and coasts, but it simultaneously is an essential step toward our goal of cleaning up the Great Garbage Patch," end quote. The Great Garbage Patch is the nickname for that massive amount of plastic garbage that has been collecting at each of the ocean's nature gyres. Boyan Slat's 2,000-meter booms will use wind and ocean currents to corral plastic garbage and collect it for removal. And it happens to be the largest floating structure ever deployed in the oceans. This pilot program kicks off in 2016 and lasts for 2 years off the coast of Japan and represents the first real attempt to solve the plastic problem in our oceans. This is just the latest example of the many ways that our younger generations are working on real solutions to our environmental crises. Boyan Slats is doing amazing work, and he's inspiring people of all ages to get involved in the fight to save our planet. And finally, do earthworms do more than help our gardens? In fact, according to new research from Yale University, they could be a solution to our climate crisis. Scientists conduct a study to measure how much carbon is emitted by microbes that digest organic matter, and they found that earthworms and other small animals dramatically reduce those emissions. Without earthworms, microbes give off far more carbon emissions, which contribute to our warming planet. The authors wrote, "The failure to incorporate animals and their interactions with microbial communities into global decomposition models has been highlighted as a critical limitation in our understanding of the current carbon cycle under current and future scenarios," end quote. In other words, failing to include earthworms in our landfills will drastically change how much pollution is given off when they decay. And this study shows how much we still have to learn about the symbiotic nature of all species on our planet. Instead of being grossed out by the next earthworm you come across, maybe you should stop and consider their important role here on the one and only planet we can call home. And that's the way it is for the week of June 8th, 2015. I'm Thom Hartmann on Science and Green News.